Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be working on a gift for one of my friends, but I'm going to revamp something that I've had for a long time. So I got this piece in particular, I don't know, I think like 3 years ago. I bought it when it was on clearance, which is also how I like to do like experimental pieces. I'll grab clearance home decor at random stores, and if it's like, say like this one I think was like $1.99, definitely better than, sometimes getting a canvas and paying $4 for something that you don't know if it's going to work or not. So I went ahead and I bought that, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it for the longest time until I found a good use of it. I'm gonna be making like a button mosaic. My friend loves buttons. She sews like purses for her job, and she teaches, which is super duper cool. It's exactly what she loves. But she also loves butterflies, so I'm gonna try to incorporate both into this. But I obviously wasn't gonna keep, the original background on that if I'm going to do that. So I painted the whole thing black, just full on black. I was thinking about doing a design here, but I kind of feared that it would be too much in the long run. And in hindsight, I probably should have sanded this thing down before I painted it, but hindsight, whatever. So I'm just filling up all of the gaps, making sure that it's least semi-even. I'm not looking for perfection for this part of it, because I know I'm going to be covering, 90% of it up with the buttons. So, But I find it easier to get pieces that are cheap like that. And it actually helped me that it already kind of had this little frame around it, because it kind of made me have a good guideline as to where the center of it was and what space I really can work around. And I went ahead with the hot glue gun, trying to like figure out how to do this. And was the hot glue gun probably the best idea? Probably not. But it's what I had available, and at the same time I did not want to use like E6000, because one, I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing beforehand, and I kind of didn't. And then two, the smell alone. Like, I have a few things of E6000 in my art room, and I knew that if I spent, an hour inhaling that, I would just be sick as a dog. So I just went ahead and suffered through the hot glue gun, and I went ahead and I put kind of like my focal points in, and I had a general idea of what I wanted to do, but it was just kind of like playing it by, sight. I had these Capiz shell buttons, and I really wanted to incorporate those in there because I thought they looked really nice with the little butterflies that I got. I just felt like it was going to be really cute. I did have a couple problems. I definitely burnt my fingers a handful of times. A handful. Yeah. But anyway, like you'll kind of see, this is about where I start having problems. Okay, so I may actually have a problem with this. So the plan was use a hot glue gun, put it on this. I don't know if maybe I'm waiting not long enough. Maybe that could be the problem. But stuff is literally coming off. So these are fine. This is fine. But the other butterflies literally knocked off. They took the paint with them. And the main one came off, also off the button. So now I'm confused. I'm going to try again with the hot glue, I guess. And then give it a few minutes and then see if it'll survive. If not, then I may have to rethink this entire thing. So after I painstakingly pulled off the glue from the butterfly and from the buttons, I just kind of regrouped, went back in with the hot glue gun, and just really firmly pressed it down and just gave it time before I put something else on. I know that the speed run of this is not doing it any justice when it comes to my patience. I could say that I'm very patient 99.5% of the time, and that little extra percent sometimes just doesn't want to wait. But this is where I really think that sanding it might have been more beneficial for me in this, because it could have, added a little more grit to the wood, and then even with the paint over it, it may have been a little bit more forgiving. But hindsight, So I walked away from it for a little bit after getting them kind of together. That's why you had that little weird jump in the video. Came back and I kind of went with the center already done. And then, like I said, I already knew where I wanted the butterflies. So now the part was trying to figure out what I wanted from the edge of the frame around the butterflies to that center. So as you can see, I have a load of buttons on the desk, and I'm just kind of picking out a few that kind of go together. I obviously don't want anything that's super duper similar, close to each other to start. So I'm just kind of building it up, kind of making this little crisscross pattern from each corner of the frame to that center butterfly. Trying to find buttons that are similar to each other. I'm also sliding some of these smaller buttons kind of under the wings of the butterflies on the corners, just so that way they have a little bit of I don't know how to explain it, a little bit of cushion, because they are raised. And that's where I was worried about them all falling off too. So it was fine. It turned out good. I'm glad that it worked out the way it did. And then I also had to make sure I had more buttons, which was always fun. But yeah, I have so many buttons and I don't even know where they came from. The capiche shells, those buttons, I feel like I know where they came from, because I used to do a lot of revamping of clothes, or clothes that we didn't use, or the material we turned into something else. So there would be handfuls of buttons that we just pulled off, and then we're okay, we'll use it for another project, and then they just kind of accumulated into a jar. But there's a few of these I'm I don't even remember where they came from. I'm wondering if at some point when I was younger that I had bought a pack of buttons, back when I was in my I'm gonna be a fashion designer phase. That phase that I think every girly girl at one point goes through. But yeah, I was I don't know where these buttons came from. We're gonna use as many of them as possible. And weird part is, this is not even half the buttons that I have right now. I think I used a good chunk of them, which I'm really glad that I did. because they actually finally have a use, and they now have help make, breathe new life into something that was going to get probably thrown in the trash anyway. So it's kind of like adding all these little things and then making them into something new. And that's just so fun to me. I love that the fact that, like, as a creative, you can just literally take whatever and make it into something new. And I think I've said something like that before, probably with my junk journaling. But it's true. You take little pieces of something that nobody sees a use for, and then you can go, okay, let's try something with that. And I mean, sometimes it doesn't work, but other times it turns out really cool. Like this guy. I didn't think this was going to turn out as well as it did. I was kind of nervous. I was just like, I'm just going to try it because, one, I had that frame, like I said, forever. And then these buttons I've had forever. And sometimes you just have those things and you're just like, they're taking up room, and I feel bad throwing it away, But at the same time, you're like, I need to find use for it or else I will throw it away. And I can't remember how long overall this took me. I feel like this overall took me like, oh gosh, maybe pushing 2 hours to do between painting and getting the buttons and then getting them all on there. I think when I looked at the footage, it was probably around 2 hours because I didn't really take a break like while filming. So I think it was close to 2 hours. But I mean, hey, it was actually pretty soothing, even though I definitely burnt my fingers a couple times. I think my left hand had like little burns on my tips, and I was just like, okay, note to self, next time, get like those little heat, like, finger guards. I know those exist. I think I've seen them before. But hot glue gun came in for the win. I just had to be a little bit more patient with it. And then I do know that there was like a couple emergency buttons that just did not want to stay. And I think it was just because they were so small. And I probably didn't add enough glue to them. And that's where I did add the E6000. And I'm telling you, I'm so glad I didn't use E6000 the entire time. I love E6000, but my sinuses don't. Or my lungs. The idea of probably using that entire time, like I said before, not the best idea. And I'm glad I didn't do it. Even though I definitely was burning something on this wood. And I don't know if it was the paint or if it was actually the wood with the heat. I'm guessing it was a paint. Because it did kind of smell, but it didn't smell like, good heat. If that makes sense. But overall, this was super duper fun. I don't think I've ever done like anything mosaic like ever. So it was really nice trying to figure out like what worked, what didn't, how, like the best way of doing it. And I'm sure if anybody like has done mosaics before, I'm sure you guys have a better way of doing it than what I did. So if you're a mosaic person and you want to give me some tips if I do this again, please let me know, because this was fun. It was actually really soothing too. So you might see more of these in the future if I'm down for the challenge. But overall, this was fun. I gave it to her, I think a couple days after, like I made sure everything was nice and cool and sane. And she was so happy about it. She has a sewing room, and it was just, she was like, I'm putting it straight in my sewing room. It'll be like, it just made me so happy that she enjoyed it. And that's really what I love. I love making things for other people to enjoy. Like, yeah, do I make stuff for me? Oh, yes. All the time, I do. But it's also special when you can give that to somebody and they can love it as much as I put the effort in. And here's what it looked like before and how it turned out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Stay creative. I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.